Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This week I'm going to show you how I built this walnut desk. If you enjoy this build, please consider subscribing and leaving a comment on the video. Thanks. I started by drawing out the basic design on SketchUp, which I'll leave in the video description below. As you can see, I kept the legs very simple, using 90-degree butt joints as the top will be live edge. I started by laying out the two slabs I'd use for the top and figuring out how I'd get the desired width. These two slabs were sequentially cut, which you'll see in later clips, meaning I can do a book match top. After roughly marking out where I do the vertical cuts, I cut both slabs to a rough length of about 58 inches. I then cut one of the pieces vertically with my track saw and reciprocating saw, cleaning up any excess with a chisel. Next I cut the second piece to maximize the width of the tabletop, but in doing so ruins the book match feature of the top as the two pieces are not cut in the same place vertically. The top was about 30 inches at this point, which is a little wide for the client, so I ended up cutting off a few more inches and getting that book match look. Next I glued the two pieces together using Type-On 2 wood glue. After removing the tabletop from the clamps, I got to flattening with my router sled and 2.5-inch router bit. If you're wondering about anything I used to produce these videos, I'll leave a link to a full list in the description below. After cleaning up both edges with the wire wheel, I filled any cracks I had in the tabletop with some wood glue and sawdust. I sanded the entire top with 100 grit sandpaper just to remove any lines left by the router. I sealed the entire top with shellac before filling any cracks with black epoxy. The shellac helps prevent the black epoxy from staining the wood. Next I moved on to making the legs, which will also be made out of walnut. All these pieces had been roughly milled, so I started by cleaning up one edge with a hand plane. Once I had this one flat reference side, I was able to cut all the pieces to the rough length on the miter saw and then to their width on the table saw. Off camera, I was able to go to my local woodworking club and joint and plane the other two faces before cutting all the pieces to their final length. I sanded all the components of the legs to 220 grit using combination of my sander and hand sanding. Next I used a dowel jig to make all the butt joint connections between the legs. This was the first time using this dowel jig, but it was super easy to use and very inexpensive if you don't have the money to afford something like a domino, like myself. After drilling the first two holes, you simply insert these two metal pins that will make a mark on the other piece of wood so that the joint lines up perfectly. After a quick test fit of the two pieces, I repeated this step on all the other leg assemblies until I had the entire base dry fit together. I started by gluing up the two legs and letting them dry before gluing up the stretchers. Next I moved on to cutting the tabletop to its final length of 55 inches with my track saw. I love the sharp edges on both the ends and how they match the legs, so I decided to add just a small round over with my sanding block. It's important to mark the entire tabletop with some pencil so that you know where you've sanded and you don't miss any spots. I went through all the grits of sandpaper in this order as you'll see on the screen now, but I'll also leave a video in the description that goes into more detail of how I sand. I then moved on to attaching the legs to the tabletop. I started by clamping down the legs exactly where I want them on the tabletop before drilling a larger recessed hole for the bolt head, and then a smaller hole that will go through the legs and the tabletop that accepts the threaded inserts. After removing the leg, I added a small chamfer to all the holes on the tabletop so that the threaded inserts sit flush. Off camera, I lightly sanded the leg assembly with 320 grit before wiping everything down with mineral spirits in preparation for finish. The finish I'm adding here is Osmo's 3043, which I apply with a white Scotch-Brite. It's important to buff it in until there's no residue left so that it penetrates deep into the pores. As always, on all the tabletops I do, after buffing for a while, I flip the Scotch-Brite pad over to the clean side and continue buffing until there's no residue left. After applying the first coat and letting it dry for at least 24 hours, I came back and sanded everything with 600 grit sandpaper before wiping it down again and reapplying. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy all the beauty shots of this desk. I think this is by far the best build video I've done so far, and I'm really proud of how it came out. As always, if you have any questions, please leave me a comment or message me on my social media. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like on this video. Thanks for all your support.